Come closer, my friend. Sit by the fire and listen well. Tonight, under the eyes of our ancestors, I will tell you a story. A story carried by the wind and rooted in the old baobab trees. It is about a young man, a strange calabash, and the lesson between wanting too much and finding true purpose. Open your heart and let the moonlight guide your spirit. Long ago, in a small village surrounded by whispering trees and warm Nigerian sunshine, there lived a young man named Emeka. He was kind and gentle, but poor as a dry river in the dry season. Every day, he worked hard under the hot sun, his hands rough and tired, his heart full of dreams that never seemed to come true. He often watched others rejoice, their homes filled with food and laughter, while his little hut stayed quiet and empty. Still, there was a spark in his eyes, a hope for something better. His mother, a wise woman, would always tell him, "My son, a patient dog eats the fattest bone. True wealth isn't how full your barn is, but how rich your heart is." Emeka would smile and nod, but deep down, he was restless. He wanted to provide for his mother, to earn respect, and to finally see good fortune smile upon him. One hot afternoon, as the sun burned like fire, Emeka walked deeper than ever into the forest near his village. He wasn't just looking for firewood. He wanted a quiet place to think. The forest was old and sacred, with tall trees that seemed to touch the sky, and roots twisted like old stories. People said spirits lived there, guarding hidden paths and ancient secrets. Emeka moved carefully, his feet quiet on the dry leaves. Then he saw something. A strange light flickering under a giant iroko tree. It wasn't sunlight or the shine of water. It was a soft, glowing light, warm and alive. Curious, he went closer and brushed away the leaves. There, beneath the roots, lay a calabash, not made of wood or gold, but shining as if woven from moonlight and starlight. It glowed softly, humming with a gentle power. Emeka's heart raced. He knew he had found something beyond the ordinary, a piece of true magic. With shaking hands, Emeka picked up the glowing calabash. It felt light, almost like air, yet something about it carried a deep, old power. The moment his fingers touched its smooth surface, a soft jolt ran through him, like a quiet spark of energy. Then the calabash began to shine even brighter. From its mouth came a swirl of glowing smoke that rose and slowly formed into a shape. It wasn't a genie in fancy clothes, but a bright figure made of pure light, calm, majestic, and full of wisdom, like an ancient ancestor. When it spoke, its voice didn't just fill the air, it echoed inside Emeka's heart. "Greetings, Emeka, son of this land," it said softly. "I am the spirit of the Calabash of Wishes. You have awakened me with your pure heart and brave hands. I can grant you 3 wishes, but choose carefully, for wishes have their own paths, and sometimes what we ask for brings things we never expect." Emeka stood frozen, his heart beating fast, like drums in the night. A calabash of wishes. It was more than he could ever imagine. He thought of his mother, her tired hands, her quiet sacrifices. He thought of his people, of hunger, of struggle, of the empty fields. Without thinking twice, he spoke, his voice shaking with emotion. "I wish for a great harvest for my village, enough food for everyone, so no man, woman, or child will go hungry this season." As the spirit nodded in agreement, the calabash began to glow brighter, sending out a warm golden light. Before Emeka could understand what was happening, the air around him seemed to change, soft, almost like a whisper of magic. He ran back to his village, his heart beating fast, his feet barely touching the ground, and what he saw left him speechless. The dry fields that once struggled under the sun were now full of life. The yam mounds had grown huge. Maize stood tall with golden cobs, and fruit trees bent under the weight of ripe fruit. The village granaries, once nearly empty, were now overflowing with food, so much that even the elders wept with joy. Soon, laughter and songs filled the air. The people danced under the stars, thanking the heavens for their blessings. Emeka smiled quietly to himself, keeping the secret of the glowing calabash hidden in his heart. He was happy, knowing he had brought plenty to his people. For many months, the village lived in peace and joy. No one went hungry, sicknesses were rare, and everyone prospered together. Emeka's heart filled with pride as he saw the respect in the eyes of his neighbors and the smiles of the children. This, he thought, is true happiness. But deep inside, something small began to grow, a quiet feeling that would later lead him down a dangerous path. As the village began to prosper, Emeka started thinking more about his own comfort and how people saw him. He remembered his mother's advice about true wealth, but the glowing calabash began to fill his mind with different thoughts. Standing alone in his now comfortable home, he said softly to the spirit, "I wish for a great house, the biggest and most beautiful in the whole land. I want it filled with treasures, so my mother and I can live in comfort and be respected by everyone." The spirit nodded. The calabash glowed brighter, and with a flash of golden light, Emeka's small hut changed before his eyes. In its place stood a large, beautiful compound. The walls were covered with carvings. The roofs shone in the sunlight, and the yard was paved with smooth, bright stones. Inside, colorful cloths hung from the ceiling. Fine carvings decorated every corner, and boxes overflowed with jewelry and precious items. At first, Emeka's mother was shocked, but soon she grew used to the comfort. She touched the soft fabrics and admired the fine pots, smiling with wonder. Emeka too enjoyed his new life. He dressed in fine clothes, threw big feasts, and everyone treated him with respect. People praised his good fortune and called him wise and successful. But slowly, the humble Emeka began to disappear. He became more focused on how others saw him than on who he truly was inside. He started to believe that his worth depended on his riches, forgetting the kind heart that had made his first wish. But as the old saying goes, a hand that gives often expects something back, and too much of anything leads to trouble. Emeka's sudden wealth brought him respect, but it also brought jealousy. News of his riches spread quickly, traveling far beyond his village until it reached the ears of a wicked sorcerer named Obafemi. Obafemi lived alone in a dark cave deep in the forest. His heart was as cold as stone, and his mind filled with greed and hunger for power. When he heard about a young man who had become rich overnight, his spirit told him that such power could not be ordinary. He sent his spies, dark, unseen creatures of the night, to watch Emeka. They returned with tales of Emeka's grand home, his endless treasures, and how everyone in the village now bowed before him. But they also spoke of a strange calabash that Emeka always kept close to him, one that glowed softly, even when hidden. Obafemi's eyes burned like fire. He knew at once that this calabash was the secret behind Emeka's power, and what Obafemi desired, he would take, no matter the cost. A storm was rising, not in the sky, but in the heart of a greedy man. A storm that would soon swallow everything Emeka loved. One night, when the moon was hidden and the village was fast asleep, Obafemi used his dark powers. Quiet as a shadow, he appeared inside Emeka's compound. Emeka, feeling safe and unaware of danger, was caught by surprise. The air suddenly grew cold, and the darkness thickened around him. Obafemi's voice came like a hiss from the night. He stood before Emeka, his eyes glowing with anger. "The Calabash boy," he said sharply, "give it to me, or you will face my wrath." Emeka woke fully, his heart pounding with fear. Still, he held the calabash tightly and shouted, "Never!" remembering the spirit's warning to be wise in his choices. But Obafemi was stronger and ready. With one wave of his hand, he cast a dark spell that wrapped around Emeka like chains, freezing him in place. Helpless, Emeka could only watch as Obafemi grabbed the shining calabash from his hands. The sorcerer laughed, a dry, cold laugh, lifting it high. "Foolish boy," he said. "Such power should never belong to someone like you." Then, in an instant, Obafemi vanished into the night, leaving Emeka trapped, heartbroken, and filled with regret. The calabash's magic could protect itself from harm, but not from lies and trickery. The loss of the calabash happened quickly and painfully. Once it was gone, everything began to fall apart. The big house started to crack, the walls broke, and all the treasures turned to dust or disappeared completely. The beautiful gardens dried up, the shiny stones split, and the fine clothes became rags. Emeka and his mother soon found themselves back in their small old hut, even worse than before. The village too began to suffer. The farmlands, once blessed by the calabash's magic, stopped growing food. Hunger, which people had almost forgotten, returned to their homes. The same villagers who once praised Emeka now looked at him with doubt and anger. Some whispered behind his back, some pitied him, but all were disappointed. He had brought them hope and wealth, and then lost it all like smoke in the wind. Emeka was broken. His pride, once strong like a tall tree, had fallen to the ground. He saw the pain in his mother's eyes and the sadness on the faces of his neighbors. Their suffering weighed heavily on his heart. He had lost everything: his riches, his respect, and worst of all, his peace. He withdrew from everyone, eaten up by regret. Only then did he realize how greed had blinded him, and how his second wish had destroyed the good that was meant to be. Days turned into weeks, and Emeka stayed lost in his sadness. But his mother, wise and strong, never gave up on him. One evening, as the fire burned low, she sat beside him and spoke gently. "My son," she said, "a tree never forgets its roots, even when it grows tall. You may have lost the calabash, but you have not lost your spirit or the lessons life has taught you. Real strength is not about never falling. It's about standing up each time you do. Remember your first wish, the one that came from kindness, when you wanted to help your people. That heart is still inside you." Her words touched him deeply. He looked at his rough hands, hands that had worked hard, that had once carried the magic calabash, and that could still work again. He remembered the simple joy of giving, the sweat of honest labor, and the smiles of his people when his first wish brought them hope. Slowly, his shame began to fade, replaced by quiet determination. He realized he still had one wish left, if only he could find the calabash again. But more importantly, he had found something greater, his true strength, not in wealth, but in purpose and compassion. That night, Mika made a promise, not only to recover the calabash, but to rediscover himself. With new courage in his heart, Emeka set out on a dangerous journey to find Obafemi's dark cave. He packed the few things he had, said a tearful goodbye to his mother, and walked into the unknown. The road was rough. He climbed steep paths, faced wild animals, and went for days without enough food or water. But he never gave up. He held on to the memory of his first wish, the pure one, letting it guide him like a light in the dark. After many days and nights, Following faint signs of Obafemi's evil magic, Emeka finally found the mouth of the cave, a wide dark hole in the mountainside that seemed to swallow all light. He knew he couldn't fight Obafemi with strength. He wasn't a warrior. His power was in his mind, his humility, and his good heart. Weapons stronger than any sword. Quietly, he stepped inside. His heart beat fast, his eyes and ears sharp. The air smelled rotten, heavy with dark magic. There, deep in the cave, he saw Obafemi at work, chanting strange words, surrounded by glowing symbols. On the altar before him sat the calabash, still shining gold and green, but now touched with a faint red glow, poisoned by the sorcerer's hand. Emeka knew he had to act wisely. He watched Obafemi closely. The sorcerer was proud and too focused on his dark work to notice anything else. Emeka waited for the right moment. When Obafemi turned his back to add something new to his boiling pot, Emeka made his move. Near the cave entrance, he had seen some bright herbs, once known in the village to make people sleep for a while. Quickly, he grabbed a handful and whispered a short prayer. Then he threw them into the pot. A cloud of thick, sweet-smelling smoke rose up, filling the cave. Obafemi coughed, staggered, and his eyes began to close. Within moments, the great sorcerer fell to the ground, fast asleep. Emeka didn't waste a second. He ran to the altar and reached for the calabash. As soon as his hands touched it, the calabash began to glow strongly, its red color fading back to a golden-green shine. It was as if the spirit inside recognized him and sighed with relief. Warmth flowed through Emeka's body. He felt connected to the calabash. But this time, he understood. This power was not something to use for greed, but something to protect and respect. With the calabash safely in his hands, Emeka knew it was time for his last and most important wish. He held it close. Its gentle light felt warm and comforting. The spirit of the calabash appeared before him again, now calm and kind, shining softly like a friendly flame. "My child," it whispered, "your final wish." Emeka closed his eyes. He remembered how empty he had felt when pride ruled his heart, how his greed brought pain to his people and sadness to his mother. He recalled an old saying, "The broom that sweeps well knows every corner of the house." He now understood his own heart, both its dark corners and its bright ones. Taking a deep breath, he said softly but firmly, "I wish for wisdom, not just for me, but for everyone in my village. Wisdom to see what true wealth really means, to be content with what we have, to work together, and to cherish the gifts of nature. May we never again be blinded by greed or empty promises, but always remember the joy of honest work and a kind heart." He didn't ask for gold, power, or his grand house back. He wished for understanding, a light within that would guide his people long after the calabash's magic was gone. As Emeka made his last wish, the calabash began to shine brighter than the sun. A deep sense of peace and understanding filled his heart. He suddenly saw life clearly, feeling connected to the earth, his ancestors, and the true meaning of happiness. When he returned to the village, he didn't come back with riches or a big house, but with calm strength and a wisdom that showed in his eyes. Then something beautiful happened. The villagers started to see their lives differently. They began to value working together again, to take pride in honest labor, and to find joy in helping one another. Their farms no longer overflowed with magic harvests, but through hard work and shared knowledge, there was always enough food for everyone. People helped each other freely, out of love and unity, not duty. Emeka no longer chased wealth or status. Instead, he became a wise elder. People came to him for advice, and his presence brought peace. He taught them that the greatest treasures are not gold or grand houses, but gratitude, humility, and kindness. That true happiness comes from within, from living with purpose and a heart full of compassion. One quiet night, when all was calm, the calabash slowly faded from his hands and became one with the earth. It left behind no riches, but its lesson lived on, woven into the hearts and lives of the people forever. And so, my dear ones, we see that sometimes the greatest blessings are not what we wish for, but the lessons we learn through our struggles. Emeka discovered that real wealth is not in gold or big houses, but in a thankful heart, a humble spirit, and the wisdom to value family, friends, and the simple gifts of life. The calabash may have granted wishes, but it was Emeka's journey that showed him the real magic inside himself. Remember, what the river gives, the river can take away, but what is built with honesty and wisdom lasts. May your hearts always be full of gratitude, humility, and the timeless wisdom of our ancestors. If this story touched your heart, subscribe for more African wisdom beneath the moonlight.